Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that I've been trying to tackle for a very long time now, and I just didn't really have a way to approach it where I felt like it was different from other people's videos in a way that would make it more entertaining. But I read some research today that I think is going to really make this video surprising to many of you and very interesting. So we're going to jump right into this. We're talking about fertility today. So specifically, when it comes to fertility, we're going to talk about the fact that it is declining in the United States. The birth rate is straight through the ground, like a jet airplane crashing into the ocean. And two, we're going to talk about why. And three, we're going to talk about the average person's views of family in the United States. And I think that three right there, that's going to be the thing that really separates this from some other points that you may have heard in the past in regard to this declining birth rate. But most importantly, we got to get to two, which are some solutions that I'm going to propose to potentially fix this problem. So first things first, throw this up on the screen right now. This comes from a Pew compilation of data from the CDC. All the gray lines in this chart, they represent a specific state and its birth rate. The blue line is the average rate across the entire United States of births per woman. Well, births per 1,000 women. So, something that you notice here real quick is that we are at the lowest birth rate that you have seen since before 1990. We are at a 30-year low when it comes to births per 1,000 women. This data only stretches up to 2020, but I can tell you from looking at other sources that the trend did not change. We are still plummeting. There was a slight little bump after the pandemic lockdowns ended, but after that, the trend continued downwards as expected. So, the first thing we're going to talk about here is why this is bad. Because this is bad. It is a bad thing when the birth rate is declining like this. So one, it's bad because this means that there's a potential, if this trend continues, of an aging population that needs to retire and not having enough new people to replace them in the economy, which is bad. I know I'm going to get a lot of comments that are like, oh my God, I don't care about the economy. Oh my God, capitalism. Whatever. That's completely besides the point and has nothing to do with what we're talking about, because it is a fact that the economy will suffer if there's not people to replace those who are retiring. That's just a fact. Everybody needs plumbers, everybody needs farmers, everybody needs grocery store workers, everybody needs hospital workers. If there's not people there to replace them, we have big problems. Two, the GDP isn't going to increase any further if people aren't participating in the economy. So if the economy can't grow if there's less people, okay? That's just the basics of how that kind of works. I mean, sure, it could become the case that automation really takes off and there's not really a need and we hit post-scarcity, but that's probably not going to happen, and it's obviously not related to what we're talking about. So, we've established that it is bad for the economy of the United States if the birth rate declines. So, the next thing that I want to talk about is what makes this so weird to me, and that's the perception of the American family. So you might be thinking initially, as I was, from looking at this data and seeing the nosedive into the decline of fertility rates that we're experiencing in the United States, and you might think to yourself, wow, young people are just not interested in starting families. They're just not. You're wrong. I was wrong too, and now you're wrong too, because I'm telling you how you're wrong, and I'm going to explain why you're wrong. So, I went looking, and I was trying to find all kinds of information, and it's just so happened that Gallup actually already did the research for me and had it presented in a very nice publication. Highly recommend using Gallup when you want to find information. Gallup and Pew Research, they're kind of the homies. But, specifically, I found a couple of things interesting when it came to perceptions that Americans have of what the ideal family looks like, children-wise. So, throw this up on the screen right now, but this is what the Americans' view of the ideal number of children in a family is. According to most people, 44%, 2 children in a family is ideal. But closing in pretty closely, and very surprisingly, 29% of people in America view the ideal number of children in a family at 3 children. And then 12 is 4, 0 is only 2%. And that's just shocking to me, because going into this research, I was of the opinion that younger people really had no interest in having children. You've been seeing on social media all over the place this stuff where, oh, we don't want to have kids because it's a bad place, we don't want to have kids, But it turns out that people still believe the ideal is having 2 to 3 children, which is really, really weird. So another piece of this Gallup information is that it's changed over time. And there's actually a larger number of people now who think that 3 is the ideal compared to where it used to be. So you see a bit of a flip-flop inverse, which I'm throwing on the screen now. I know, I'm so fancy this time. I'm going to be throwing a lot of edits into this video. But if you look at the time trend over a long period of time, 1 or 2 became popular, the more popular opinion for ideal number of children in like the late 60s, early 70s. And that trend continued until now, where it's at 47% versus 45%. The 45%, the blue line, being people thinking that it's ideal to have 3 or more children. So during the Great Depression and the baby boom, you see 3 or more children is the more common ideal of how many children to have in a family. And then, like we discussed just a second ago, it got replaced by the 1 or 2 ideal. And now, if you follow the trend, it seems like more and more people are starting to believe that the ideal is having 3 or more children again, which is really interesting to me, because engaging in social media and watching the news and seeing the decreasing birth rate, one can't help but expect that Americans are starting to think that the ideal family has no children. It's just a husband and wife, a DINK, as many people call it, double income, no kids. And apparently that's just not how people feel at all, like even a little bit. Another thing that we want to look at, because I was thinking when I'm reading these numbers, these overall numbers, I'm sitting there saying, okay, well, it's probably really heavily carried by older folks. Older folks are probably bigger in number as a population, so they're probably really carrying and skewing this information hard towards the 3 or more children section. However, Gallup is the homie, as you can see right here. Apparently, it's actually the 18 to 29-year-olds who are having these issues. We got 2 charts on this one. The one on the left over here, this is going to be one that talks about parental status or position on having children based on age, broken down by age. So 21% of people 18 to 29 have children already. However, 63% of them do not have children, but still want to, which is really surprising to me. I thought that the number would be significantly lower, but it's not, which really raises some question marks here. Why are they not having kids? And then on the right over here, we're throwing up another one where we are going to go ahead and talk about, broken down into age once more, again, the ideal number of children in a family. So if we look here at the age group demographic, and there's other demographic information here if you're so inclined, if you're interested in this information, go ahead and peruse at your pleasure. But specifically, I want to focus on the 18 to 29-year-olds, because those are the people who are, let's face it, childbearing age. Those are the people we care about for the purposes of this video. So in the 18 to 29 group, you see that 42% of them think that 1 or 2 children is ideal for a family to have. But you see that 52% of people 18 to 29 believe that 3 or more is the ideal number of children for a family. So why the fuck are people not having babies? If everybody who's young and childbearing age agrees that it is a better and more ideal situation to have 3 or more children, or at the very least 1 or 2, 0 was only 2% of all respondents in this research. If that's the case, then how is it possible that the birth rate is declining, right? So I have a few ideas as to why this might be the case. One, I think that people's perceptions of the economy are extremely poor, even if they feel as though they are doing well themselves. They have very low hopes for the future, and even more so than that, they have a really skewed and bad idea of how the national and local economies they live in are doing. So in order to support what I'm saying here and for us to discuss this on the same playing field, I want to refer to the Federal Reserve publication that I've been reading. I've been obsessed, guys. I've been like a man possessed reading the Federal Reserve publications. But here on the screen, up here, you will be able to see an assessment of an individual's own financial well-being, local economy, and national economy by year. So I want to focus specifically on 2022 and 2023. Specifically, 2023 is the numbers that I'm going to report here, just because it makes it more simple, straightforward, and easy. You can clearly see the numbers yourself over time up here in the corner. But 72% of people in 2023, this goes from 2023 to May 2024, so it's very recent. But in 2023, 72% of people reported that they felt as though they were doing at least okay financially. Interesting. Very interesting. So 72% of people feel like they're doing all right. However, and this is a really large discrepancy, only 42% of the same respondent pool reports that they believe their local economy is doing okay, at least. And only 22% of them believe that the national economy is doing okay, at least. Why is there such a huge discrepancy between these two numbers? This is something that's going to come up in another video in the future, so make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you can tune in for that one, because I'm going to do a whole economy video that I think a lot of people will be either very upset about or very pleased about. You never know. You never know anymore, but make sure you subscribe so that you can catch that one as well. Hit that bell icon. Have a good time. And how this relates to what I'm talking about is, typically speaking, my first go-to argument would be, well, people are not economically doing well. People are not financially stable to the point where they feel like they could support children. However, 72% of them say that they are doing okay financially. Maybe their definition of okay financially differs from mine, and obviously in these numbers it's not really super specific, and I can't really get a better breakdown of that information from what I've found thus far. But the interesting thing here is that it still might be an economic situation why the birth rate is declining, because even though that 72% of people feels like they are doing okay financially, only 22% of those people think that the national economy is doing at least okay. And what that tells me is that people are doing perfectly fine financially, 72% of them at least. And they're still not having kids because their perception of the national economy and how they feel about what the future of the US might look like makes them extremely pessimistic economically. So it's kind of a perception versus reality situation here. The reality of the situation is that 72% of people agree that they are doing at least okay financially, but the illusory wall here is that 22% of them agree that the national economy is doing well, which is extremely interesting and an extremely big discrepancy that deserves its own video, which it will get, as I just said. So let's bring this back into talking about birth rate and family size. So if it's the case that most people are reporting that they're doing well, however, they don't really think that the national economy is doing well, and they don't have very high hopes for the future, this tells me it is still partly an economic situation, at least. But another factor to consider is that people are waiting until they're just a little bit older to have children. So it might be the case that the birth rate is declining, but once that 18 to 29 age group gets it together and they decide that they do want to finally settle down and have kids, I'm expecting that we're going to see a little bit of a bump up here in the birth rate. I think that this is more of a chronological type issue, a special cohort issue that is going to be fixed as people get closer to age 30. Like the people who are 18 right now, as they get closer to 30, I think more and more and more of them are going to be pursuing what they identify as the ideal family of having 3 or more children, because I think that that's just what they want to do. That's their ideal of what a family should look like. So I think that they're going to take steps to accomplish that. So I'm a little bit optimistic on that regard, at least. But the big one to focus on here is still the economics of the situation. So it's the case that childcare is extremely expensive. Here's the average childcare price per year right here. Yep, that's pretty expensive for daycare services because most families have to have dual incomes in order to function at this point in time, which is pretty bad. I mean, if you really think about the conditions under which you would want to raise children, one of those conditions is most likely being able to have one of the parents stay at home. And quite frankly, the way that the US has been set up economically over the past 30 years has really lent itself to preferring a dual income household in order to function on the same things that we've had in the past. Okay, I can bite that. I can buy into that idea. So here are my proposed solutions. And solution one that I think would really help to alleviate this issue is that we just go ahead and give direct daycare service subsidies to families who are trying to get started out. I'm thinking that there should be some kind of reasonable limit on that, but I'm not currently making the law. This is just a general idea that I think would help a whole lot for this situation, because I think that the economics of it are the thing that's stopping people from having children, because 63% of them, the 18 to 29 year olds, say they want to have kids. And that's a huge amount of people in that age group who say that they want to have kids even though they don't have any, which really makes me feel like it has nothing to do with what they want. It has to do with the economy. So that goes to my second solution here. We need to increase wages in a way that people can sustainably live and financially sustain themselves and their families with a single income house. And I already know what I'm going to get in the comments. It's, oh, Tom, don't be picking sides. Meh, 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 meh. You're this, you're this. No, I'm not. When I say this, I'm specifically not calling to go back to specifically the situation that we had many years ago with single incomes, where it would typically be a woman as the homemaker and a man as the breadwinner who would go to work. I don't care what gender the person who's got the job is. I don't give a shit. I care that people are having kids. You gotta have kids. Like, if a man is gonna stay home, no shame, brother. No stigma. Go ahead and stay home. Raise them goddamn kids. Your life depends on it. Okay? I don't think that this is a gender issue. I don't think that people aren't reaching across the board. And if you look at the information that I showed you previously, it's actually the case that more women prefer 3 or more children to men who prefer 3 or more children. So I don't want to hear anything in the comments about how it's women's fault that this is happening or it's men's fault that this is happening, because it's extremely clear to me that the trend is that most people think that 2 or more children is the ideal. This isn't a gender issue. The genders are pretty equally split on this issue. This is an economic issue. Don't let people distract you from this issue based on gender, because it's got nothing to do with your gender. People agree with this across genders. This is an economic issue. So we give childcare subsidies to people. We give tax credits to people who want to have children. And here's the one where people are going to really disagree with me a lot. People are going to throw me out a window for what I'm about to say. But the biggest reason that people are waiting until they're older to have children, which is a huge contributing factor to the declining birth rate, and the reason that that's a huge declining factor to the declining birth rate is that people are waiting until they're older to have children because they're not sure that it's okay right now. They don't have the money right now. But let me get to the point. You gotta forgive student debt. You have to. It's becoming so ridiculously obviously clear that in order to preserve American culture and society as we've been used to it for the past 50 years, it is becoming more and more and more obvious that not only do we need to make college debt gone, student debt vanish, just vamoose out the door, at least a large portion of it, but also we need to make just education cheaper across the board. Because if we're going to strive towards single income houses, like one of my solutions I proposed before, then we're really going to need to have an educated populace. And the reason I say we need to have an educated populace is because despite what I like about it, I'm completely neutral on liking this or not. Let me make that clear. Despite my feelings on the matter, income is directly correlated with education attainment. That is just a fact. People who get PhDs typically make more money than people who only have a high school diploma or a bachelor's degree. That is just a fact, a demonstrable fact. Let me demonstrate it right here as a matter of fact. And I think that if you provide childcare subsidies, get rid of student debt so that people have more money freed up to raise children with, and you set up the economy in a way where it is possible to do single income households again. Don't care about the gender. Let me reiterate. Don't care who's going to work and who's staying at home with the kids. It means literally nothing to me. I care that there's somebody there to watch the kids. I do not care that the person is a man or a woman. It makes no difference to me. But if you accomplish those 3 things, I think that you'll create an economic situation that younger people find significantly more conducive to producing offspring. I think that if we tackle the economic barriers that people are experiencing, they'll start pursuing their ideal family. As we've already been discussing, the ideal family is 2 or more children in the view of most Americans, including the 18 to 29 age demographic. So if we can remove those economic hurdles that are obviously prohibitive to people having children, then they'll probably start having children because that's what their ideal is. Is this making sense to people? People want their ideal family, so if you remove the barriers from them having their ideal family, they'll pursue having their ideal family. That's what I'm trying to get across here. And I don't know. I've been doing a lot of research on this kind of stuff, and I thought it was really interesting to talk about, and just kind of figured you guys would enjoy having this discussion with me. But as always, get your opinions from more than one person. 2, leave a comment, because I'm really curious what people's perceptions on this topic are, because I don't know, it's just really interesting to me as somebody who's in this 18 to 29 age group and wants to have 3 or more children. I do want 3 or more children. I'm gonna just throw that out there. I am slightly biased in that way. I'm curious what you guys think. So go ahead, leave a comment. Remember, no hate shit. I don't want to see people bullying each other. That kind of breaks my heart. Like, you can come after me all you want. Go ahead. I don't care. But don't come after other commenters. It's kind of fucking cracked if you do that. I hate it when people do that. And have a nice day. And I will catch you guys next week. Bye, everybody.